Hello everybody, and welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm Tone, and it's really great to be with you once again. Today I wanted to bring to you episode 2 of That's a Little Sharp. And as you can see, I've got my little sharp sign hat. Boy, I love it. The fact that it doesn't have anything else, just the sharp sign. And, well, I should actually put that on, being we're doing the segment. And I've got myself a hot coffee in my beloved Collingwood Magpies cup and my Magpies jumper. Today I wanted to cover something that really annoys me. I think it's something that we naturally do. We naturally do it in our language that we use for certain things. But it's got to stop. Like it's got to stop. And some people are not going to like perhaps this theory or this idea about it stopping. And part of that, I think, is because it's so ingrained in us now. That's what everybody does. Everybody does that. And so because everyone's done it for so long, because we've been told it so many times, it'll offend quite a lot of people because it takes away the only thing they've ever known. And that's usually what happens. Today I want to talk about labels. How we label each other, other people. And on one hand, people will say, don't label other people. But then on the other hand, immediately they go to labeling that situation or that person for what they think they should label it as or label them as. I feel that when someone has committed a action, whether it be good or bad, that we label the action, we label what they've done, but we don't label them as what they've done. Or we don't label them as where they're from. So, if someone told a lie, you wouldn't call them a liar because they don't always lie. If someone was guilty of murder, well, we shouldn't call them a murderer, but we don't say that they didn't commit the offence because they did, right? I have trouble with that idea where we'll call someone a murderer, we'll call someone a liar. We've got to be careful with that because I don't believe at all, not for a second, that our actions define our who we are. They don't. Because as I've spoken about in other videos, we don't, our actions don't define us. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Look, what I wanted to talk about though is these things also about people going on about racism, sexism, all these isms, right? Now, someone will, you're a sexist, you're a racist. Now I hate these words because really all we need to be using in those contexts is we have a prejudice towards another person for something that is not related to who they really are. That's it. Someone from another country, it's not a prejudiced thing to say that person who committed that offence is from that region. It's not racist, because if they are from there and they did do that, that's just telling a truth. Okay? That's telling a truth. But then to treat them differently because of where they're from or because of what they've done, now you're being prejudiced towards them, because it doesn't mean they're not capable of redeeming themselves, changing their ways. So we've got to look at everything based on the merits of what they have done, what they could be capable of doing in the future, not basing it on where they're from, what they've done. And by putting a label on there and saying this person is Caucasian, this person is African American, this person is African, this person is Asian, and therefore, okay, that's prejudice. All right, that's prejudice, that's a label. But I strongly detest the word racism, the word sexism. I know plenty of women that can do things that might be more considered to be a man's kind of job. They can do it far better than me. But it's not sexist. It's not sexist to then suggest that, well, actually, in general terms, women do this, and in general terms, men do this. That's not sexist. That's truth. But if someone was to say, well, because that person is a guy, he won't be good at that or can't be good at that, that's prejudice. I'm not going to call it sexist. It's ridiculous. So when we put labels on things like that, it doesn't help anybody. It's quite ridiculous, in my opinion. And it's the reason why I hate these words. Racist. Sexist. I don't know, watching an ad for a news program on television about a week ago, and I've been thinking about this for about a week, off and on, not for the whole week, but it happened to be a lady that said it. She said, racism and sexism and some other long list of stuff, there's never an excuse for it. And I thought to myself, there's no excuse for prejudice based on appearance or the place where they were originated from. There's no excuse for that. But I'm going to use an example. Some are not going to like it, perhaps, but the numbers might be wrong. But there was a claim that was said, well, it's racist to suggest this. And they said 50% of all crime in America was committed by 11% of the population of America. Now, like I said, my figures aren't going to be correct, but that's not the point. And then they were saying 11% of the population of America are African American. And of that 11% of the population, they attribute to or account for 50% of all crime in America. Okay? Or over 50%, I can't remember. Now, it was that by some people was considered a racist thing to say, right? Now, we're not having prejudice towards African American people by saying this. We're taking real data and We're identifying a real problem, and only when we identify a problem which exists can we hope to find a solution to that problem. Okay? But it's not prejudice to claim a truth that is true, because only by claiming a truth that is true can we seek to adjust everything. All right? And it really, really bothers me when anyone would say, okay, you've claimed something and that's racist. You've claimed something and that's sexist. You've claimed something and, well, they're a murderer. They're a liar. They're a this. They're a that. Therefore. Wrong answer. You've already screwed your argument and your opinion by going down that path. Each and every person is unique, but the truth applies to each person equally. And it does not help to label people in that way. It doesn't help. In fact, it causes divisions. And that's what some people want. That's exactly what some people want. How do you divide people? Take away their personal identity. How do you give people freedom? Allow them to have their personal identity without having to put a label on them, without being prejudiced towards them because of anything. Okay? The actions don't define you. That does not mean that your actions, that you won't be judged for those actions. All right? There's a saying, love the sinner but hate the sin. And the reason is because the sin does not define the person. Okay? It certainly might indicate what's going on in here, because what's going on inside you is what pours out of you. That's true. But it doesn't define you. And I wanted to touch on that today anyway. Now, I know that a lot of people don't agree with that theory or with that idea and that opinion. They don't. Because it's comfortable to be able to put something or an idea into a box and just say, that is that. But we have to have an open mind all of the time and not be lazy and just put everything into a box. It does not help anybody, including and especially yourself, myself included. I've been guilty of it plenty of times. But it's very, very, very important that we get the concept. Stop using words like racism and sexism to describe an action just because we can't be bothered to unpack it and look at what's really going on there. As I've said in other videos, I think this is what I was going to say before. A liar, right? Someone will say someone's a liar. That means if we call them that, that's all they're capable of. And that's all they've ever done is lie. But I covered that someone that tells a lie may just tell you a truth. And someone who usually tells you a truth is quite capable of telling you a lie. All based on motive, of course, but it's not without the possibility. And someone who has had a clean bill of actions all across their life can be guilty of murder if things went crazy and they just could not control themselves in that time. Okay? And someone who has been guilty of committing murders, God has done wonderful things in people like that where they've turned around, they've changed. Now that does not mean they're not guilty of what they've done. It does not mean that we should just forget what they did. But it does mean forgiveness reaches out to those people and they are capable of change. So therefore, labeling them a murderer, a liar, doesn't help. An adulterer, right? Someone who's guilty of doing those sorts of things, they can change. And someone who's never ever been guilty of those things, they can change. So labeling people, labeling them based on an action, never a good idea. So, that's a little bit sharp, I know. Truth cuts like a knife. It cuts to the bone of the issue. And so, that's why we share it. And so I encourage you to stop thinking in the context of words like racism, sexism. Cut it out. Don't be thinking in your mind in terms of that person is a liar, that person is a murderer, that person is a this, is a that. No, their name is John. Their name is Michael. Their name is Jack. They're not a thing, they're a person. I just wanted to share that today. Really, really, really stop labeling people, because that's what a certain number of people want. The only way that we can be divided is by dividing ourselves and allowing others to teach us these ideas, which we've been taught. Don't doubt for a second that this is social conditioning and you've been taught to think in this way. Just look at the way they portray everything in the media. You can have a different idea about sexual orientation, for example, and you would get called a homophobe. Okay, so anyone who claims that because I'm different, I'm there, that, you know, can I say that they're a heterophobe? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous to use that term. And I'm sick of that too. The truth is the truth is the truth, and it doesn't matter what anyone wants to portray and wants to talk about. It's not good enough to just use a label like that and palm it off and say that's the issue, gone. It's not good enough, not going to fly with me, and I hope it's not going to fly with you. I hope that this has been helpful to you to really combat this idea, this destructive idea that labeling something as simple, in a simple term, is enough to just wipe away the issue and say, right, okay, I've dealt with that, that person's just a racist. Right? I hope that this is eye-opening enough, encouraging enough, that it will spark something in your mind to go, oh, yeah, that's not really good enough. I can do better. I hope it opens up your mind to a new way of thinking and starts to clean off, you know, those layers of crap that we've been fed into our minds from a young age, and from the media just telling us blah, 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 blah. A whole lot of white noise. Actually, it's not white noise. We can hear it. We've been bombarded by it. Shouldn't call it white noise. Anyway, that's a little bit sharp. Stop using terms like sexism, racism, liar, murderer, blah, blah, blah. Just stop it. It's not helpful. It's never going to help anybody. And it's going to help least of all you if you do it. Thank you once again for joining me on It's a Little Bit Sharp. And, or It's a Little Sharp. And we'll see you in the next videos. Bye for now. God bless.